It's for those reasons that if the amendments pass, I won't be prepared to support the bill going forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Elmwood-Transcona will have 5 minutes remaining period for questions and comments when the House next returns to debate on the question. But now we're going to go to statements by members. Déclaration de député, and the honourable member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to recognize Rabia Kheder, recently appointed to the Ontario Human Rights Commission, for her inspiring work in my community. Commissioner Kheder has long been a staunch advocate for persons with disabilities. She's the founder of the Canadian Association of Muslims with Disabilities and currently the president and CEO of Dean Support Services. Through Rabia Kheder, her hard work and dedication, Dean runs the Muniba Centre in my riding, and I was honoured to attend its grand opening last year. Mr. Speaker, many adults with developmental disabilities find themselves with nowhere to go and nothing to do after finishing school. As a result, they face significant deficiencies in their quality of life. The Muniba Centre fills this gap by offering life skills, day programming, peer support groups, information sessions, respite and residential services for individuals living with disabilities and their families and caregivers in a culturally and spiritually safe environment. Mr. Speaker, I invite all members to recognize Rabia Kheder for her inspirational efforts to build a more inclusive society. Thank you.
Honourable member for Niagara West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to share the concerns of some of my constituents regarding shipments of nuclear waste that could soon pass through the Niagara region. This material from the Canadian Nuclear Laboratory facility in Chalk River is being returned to the United States for processing. Many Niagara residents have organized themselves to scrutinize the planning and approval process for these shipments and to ensure that every precaution is taken. It is essential that this nuclear waste be transported in a way that fully protects the people along its path and, of course, the surrounding environment. I call upon all levels of government and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to work with their counterparts in the United States to ensure these shipments are completed safely and securely. If this project fails to meet the very highest standards for transporting nuclear hazardous waste, it should not be allowed to pass through Niagara. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Egmont.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to wish the best of luck to Janet Charchuk, a young woman in my riding who will be representing Canada at the 2017 Special Olympics World Winter Games. Janet has Down syndrome, but says that while it is a part of her, it does not define her as a person. A strong advocate for people with disabilities, she is the president of People First PEI and is a provincial representative on the People First of Canada Board of Directors. She also represented Special Olympics Team PEI at last year's National Games, where she won 3 medals in snowshoeing events. This week, her hometown of Alberton organized a special community event to wish her well before traveling to Austria next week to again compete in snowshoeing. You are a role model, Janet. Best of luck to you and to all Team Canada competitors.
The honourable member for South Okanagan West Kootenay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 5 years ago, Penticton resident Fred Ritchie became concerned about the issue of climate change. He called a few friends, and a half a dozen of us ended up sitting around his table. Before the meeting was over, we had formed an informal group that we called First Things First, because climate change was clearly the problem the world had to solve before anything else.
Absolument.
I haven't been directly involved with the group for the last couple of years, but clearly it's thriving. Last year, First Things First put on a one-day solar fair, and over 600 people showed up. On April 22nd, the group is putting on a forum at the Penticton Secondary School called Energy, Our Present, Our Future, Renewable Energy Systems, Sustainable Buildings, and the New Energy Workforce are among dozens of topics in this day-long symposium. I'll be there continuing to learn how our society can create jobs and wealth while making the transition to a low-carbon future.
The honourable member for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Monsieur le Président, je suis fier.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud to announce that last week the Seniors Council of Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, held its first meeting.
The Advisory Council will meet regularly, and its members are from different backgrounds, neighbourhoods, and associations. Our government has worked hard to meet the needs of seniors. We have restored the eligibility age for OAS and GIS and increased GIS for almost 1 million single seniors. After a lifetime of hard work and contributions, Canadian seniors deserve a dignified and comfortable retirement. Members of my Seniors Advisory Council provided me with their top 3 priorities: housing, health care, and pensions. We are meeting again in April, and what I learned from seniors on my council I will bring right back to Ottawa to ensure that our seniors have a strong voice on the Hill. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, spring is in the air, and having already attended the official maple tree topping 2 weeks ago, this spring air smells of sweet maple syrup. On April 1, I will once again have the privilege of serving at the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival. This is the world's largest one-day festival. Thousands of pancakes flooded with fresh maple syrup is something you don't want to miss. Mr. Speaker, if you will join me personally in Kitchener-Conestoga on April 1st, I will be happy to serve you and any one of my colleagues joining me in Elmira. Not only is the festival filled with good food, sugar bush tours, pancake flipping contests, and many other activities for all ages, last year over $51,000 was raised in support of local charities and not-for-profit organizations. I encourage all of my constituents to get involved and join me in volunteering for the 53rd Elmira Maple Syrup Festival. So on April 1, come to the greatest riding in all of Canada, Kitchener-Conestoga, and taste the tradition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge a company in my riding at the epicenter of the rural renaissance that is going on in Eastern Ontario. Team Eagle Limited is a global leader in the advancement of airfield innovations, from cutting-edge airfield operations software to anti-fire and de-icing equipment, to so much more in between. Team Eagle has also developed the world's largest snow remover for airports. It will revolutionize how airfield snow removal is done. Team Eagle's new braking availability tester provides accurate information on runway surface conditions contaminated by ice, snow, or slush, so that pilots can better calculate an aircraft's stopping capability on touchdown and avoid overruns that can be costly and sometimes fatal. This exciting innovation is being tested by Transport Canada. And Mr. Speaker, this is all being done in my riding of Northumberland Peterborough South in a facility in a community of less than 4,000 people. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to sharing more of the Eastern Ontario success stories in the near future. Thank you.
The honourable member for Moncton Riverview Dieppe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. World Social Work Day is an opportunity for the community of social workers to raise awareness of their profession and strengthen their resolve to further the cause of social justice at the local, national, and international levels. As a former social worker myself at Victims and Family Services, I am thrilled to draw attention to this noble profession.
Every day, social workers make important contributions to society by addressing the problems that are global in scope and require complex responses from all levels of government. At its core, the profession focuses on strengthening communities so that people within them can form strong social networks that enable improved health outcomes and more satisfying lives.
To conclude, Mr. Speaker, defending human rights and social justice is the main motivation of social workers. Let's all take this opportunity to recognize the importance of social workers in Canada and around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, Happy Holi. Holi is a Hindu festival of colors and celebration of spring that occurs on the last full moon of winter. Originating in India and Nepal, Holi is now celebrated throughout the world. Holi's message of peace and compassion bring together people from many different communities. This century-old agriculture festival bids farewell to the winter season and welcome the season of rebirth that is spring. It is time of personal reflection and forgiveness. As Canadians, we admire the contribution that Hindus have made to our country. As a Member of Parliament for Markham Unionville, I wish all Canadians celebrating Holi a joyous festival. Holi Mubarak. Happy Fagba. Happy Holi to you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Fredericton.
Fredericton is full of educated, engaged, and entrepreneurial youth who care deeply about the social, economic, and environmental progress of Canada. The 18 members of the Fredericton Constituency Youth Council best exemplify this desire to build a more inclusive and prosperous country for all. Les trois groupes de travail.
The three working groups of the Youth Council work closely with local leaders and stakeholders and are doing in-depth research in three essential domains to move our country forward.
Receiving their recommendations on how best to address youth homelessness in Canada, how to enhance economic and social inclusion for newcomer refugees, and how to increase access to mental health supports to vulnerable youth, including those within the LGBTQ2 community.
Mr. Speaker, my government colleagues can expect good, well-thought-out recommendations from these young leaders, and I'm impatiently waiting to launch the dialogue that will take place in this House after their recommendations are tabled. Thank you.
Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, Toronto has long been a sanctuary city. In 1847, the city only had a population of 20,000 people, but in that same year, across the ocean, Ireland was gripped by famine. The Great Hunger, as it's known, killed millions, but sent millions more abroad in search not just of a better life, but in fact of life itself. In just one summer, Toronto more than doubled in size as 38,000 desperate souls arrived in the city without notice. On the shores of Lake Ontario, despair was not met by fear, but with compassion. Refugees were brought into the city. A public health system was sprung to life almost overnight. And even though we had few doctors and nurses, many gave their lives in the service of trying to save these refugees so that those refugees could live lives and prosper in Ontario. The extraordinary response is now memorialized along the shores of Lake Ontario by Ireland Park. And this fall, a second park will be opened in Toronto to memorialize the health workers who gave their lives. This St. Patrick's Day, raise a glass. Be sure to do that. But also remember the brave and compassionate response of Toronto to refugees.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, recently a veteran by the name of Richard Clements of Summerland, British Columbia, came by my office and asked if I might share a few words on his behalf. Dick will be turning 90 this year, and he wanted to publicly say thank you to Veterans Affairs and the great staff there who've helped him over the years. Dick also asked that I pass on his thanks for programs like Canada Pension Plan, Old Age Security, and Guaranteed Income Supplement. He made a special mention for the assistance the War Veterans Allowance provided for him, as well as the Veterans Independence Program. And of course, Mr. Clements passed on a special thank you to the many Canadian Legions across Canada for the important work that they do. Mr. Clements is a vibrant and healthy 90-year-old veteran, and he credits many of these programs and organizations for what he calls his healthy and aging success. On a personal note, sometimes in this place we get consumed when things go wrong. It can be overlooked that successive generations of parliamentarians have debated and passed many of these programs that indeed are making a positive influence on people's lives. And I ask this House to join me to say thank you to Richard Clements for his service to our great country.
The honourable member for Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Vimy Ridge is a defining moment in Canada's 150 years history. I'd like to share a touching story about a constituent of mine in Mississauga Centre and his connection to Vimy. This April, Charles Guin will be travelling to France to attend the 100th anniversary ceremony at Vimy Ridge. 6 members of Charles' family served in World War I. 3 were soldiers, and the other 3 were nurses. One of his grandfather's cousins, Lieutenant David Fernary, was killed at Vimy on March 1st, 1917. His body was never found, thus his name is engraved on the majestic Vimy Memorial. I want to wish Charles a fantastic trip and offer my gratitude to him and his family for their service. His father, John Guin, and the rest of us are looking forward to seeing pictures from his special trip. Mr. Speaker, as we celebrate the success of Canada, we must never forget the lessons of the past. Thank you.
The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to pay tribute to this year's International Women's Day. I've been blessed with a number of strong female role models in my life. My mother Brenda, my 3 sisters, Rebecca, Jessica, and Tessa, my wife Janelle, as well as many female friends and colleagues throughout the years in my work in the community sector and the NDP. In my brief time on the Hill, the amazing women in our caucus have already helped me to be a better MP, and I look forward to continuing to learn from their examples. This week I had the honour of sharing my seat with an inspiring young woman from Elmwood Transcona, Shania Pruden. She did us proud by speaking with earnest passion to the struggles faced by young Indigenous women in Canada. It boggles my mind that these founts of talent, these role models, these leaders can all expect to get paid 15 to 20% less
for the work they do simply because they're women. I say to the government, don't wait. Bring in fair pay equity legislation now. Thank you.
The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week on the prairies, March came in like a lion with a blizzard that dumped heaps of snow and was accompanied with 90-kilometre winds. Once again, Westman residents stepped up to the plate and helped those in need. They are the truly unsung heroes of this ordeal. I've heard remarkable stories about people who ventured into the blizzard to rescue those who were stranded in their cars, like the young couple from New Jersey who were saved by a Souris farmer who drove his tractor to reach them, or the tireless efforts of volunteer firefighters in the RM of Whitehead who helped those trapped on No. 1 Highway and set up the emergency shelter in Alexander to provide food and a place to warm up. I say thank you to each and every one of those volunteers who opened their homes to strangers, to those who cleaned up the roads and highways, to the municipal staff, the RCMP, and the other first responders for all of your efforts. Through floods, blizzards, and tragedies, Manitobans always rise to the occasion. Thank you once again.
The honourable member for Canada Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, next week is Canadian Agricultural Safety Week in Canada. My riding of Canada Carleton includes the fantastic farmers of West Carleton, from Panmure to Kinburn to Carp to Fitzroy Harbour. Unlike other occupations, a lot of farms are family-run operations when the home becomes an industrial work site. Canadian Agricultural Safety Week is an annual public awareness campaign focused on the importance of maintaining safe farming practices. I encourage everyone to check out the Agricultural Safety website for great information. It's designed to help farmers adopt sound safety practices. Mr. Speaker, we owe an enormous debt of gratitude to our hard-working farmers. Their work is critical to our survival and prosperity, and doing it safely is fundamental. I want to say a special thank you to all the farmers of West Carleton, and as I have said on a number of occasions, Mr. Speaker, if you like to eat, thank a farmer. Thank you.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Minister criticized a possible new U.S. border tax, saying he's concerned with anything that creates impediments at the border, and in his words, extra tariffs or new taxes. Yes, but yet it's actually this Prime Minister who is putting a new tax on all Canadians in the form of a carbon tax that will do more to hamstring Canadian trade and competitiveness than any American border tax. Just ask Alberta and Ontario. When will the Prime Minister realize that it's his carbon tax that Canadian job creators are so worried about?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Here, this government is committed to creating a more innovative economy that reduces emissions, protects the environment, and creates good-paying middle-class jobs. Pricing carbon pollution will reduce emissions and provide certainty and predictability to businesses. Pricing pollution will drive innovation and clean growth that will boost the economy and make Canada more competitive in the global market. Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of inaction on the part of the previous government, this government is taking action to address climate change and to do so in a manner that will create good middle-class jobs.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, if that was accurate, the Liberals would release the numbers. Canadians are worried about the Prime Minister's plan to impose a carbon tax while refusing to say just how much this tax will cost them. The Prime Minister isn't being transparent on the carbon tax, and now he won't tell Canadians how much they're going to have to pay for his out-of-control spending. Canadians are worried that he's hiding his real agenda. So, will the Liberals tell Canadians today, are they planning on axing seniors' income splitting in this upcoming budget?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. Mr. Speaker, our government has made a commitment to help seniors within this country. It is our government, Mr. Speaker, that reversed the age of retirement from 67 to 65. We have also put in place an increase in the guaranteed income supplement for low-income seniors, and we've made an increase of 10%, Mr. Speaker, and that's substantial for seniors because it's on average $1,000 more a month. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to helping seniors, and we're going to continue to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
It was a simple yes or no question, Mr. Speaker, that the Liberals refused to answer. This reckless tax and spend Prime Minister will deliver a budget that will leave us with a maxed out credit card, decades of deficit, and a huge debt that can only be financed through higher taxes. We all know that budgets actually don't balance themselves. So Canadians need to know, does the Prime Minister believe that the budget should be balanced? And if so, when does he plan to do it?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I'm pleased to rise in this House today to talk about the work that our government is doing. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to do smart investments with our economy to help our middle-class Canadians and to help our economy prosper. And good news, Mr. Speaker, the job numbers are out today. We have seen that over the past 6 months, over 220,000 jobs have been created. New jobs, Mr. Speaker. Most of those jobs are full-time, so we can see that is evidence that our plan is working, and we are going to continue to make the needed investments in Budget 2017. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. They forgot to mention that 8% of those jobs are part-time jobs. When we were leading the government, though, it was 80% of full-time jobs. That's what creating wealth and jobs looks like. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that the next budget will be tabled on March 22nd. It's coming. Canadians are worried, and they have reason to be so, because the Liberals promised that we're going to have teeny tiny deficits, and now they're huge. They said that Canadians are going to pay lower taxes, and that's not the case. They said we're going to help entrepreneurs, and that's not what is happening. Why would the Canadians trust you? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to rise in this House today to talk about the great things that our government is doing. And once again, we are going to continue to invest in the economy to support the middle class and those who need that help. Good news, the numbers came out today, and once again, in the last 6 months, we've created over 222,000 new jobs in Canada. And, Mr. Speaker, most of those jobs are full-time jobs. And that's the best job growth in the last 10 years. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, let's come back to reality. Let's talk about facts. Let's talk about numbers. For 10 weeks, the Minister of Finance hid in his office a study done by his own officials that said what? That if the government were not to change its ways, we'd have a $1.5 trillion debt by 2050, and the books would not be balanced until 2055, which is 36 years later than forecasted. Why should the Canadians trust people who hide information as important as that? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I am very happy to rise in this place to tell Canadians that our plan is working. Today, we saw the results of the work that we've done over the last 16 months. Mr. Speaker, the creation of 222,000 full-time jobs in Canada. We see that our plan that we tabled is working, and we are going to continue making the investments required with Budget 2017. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, when we questioned the government about the cases of Canadians turned back at the border, the answer was that these individuals should communicate with American authorities. In other words, the government is washing its hands. That's entirely unacceptable. Instead, the government should stand up and work to guarantee the rights of Canadian citizens. Can the minister confirm that he is going to discuss the matter with his American counterpart and discuss specific cases of individuals turned back at the border with no valid reason and make sure that there's no longer any impact on Canadians that want to visit the United States? The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
The fact of the matter is there are over 400,000 people that move back and forth across the Canada-U.S. border every single day. This is the largest, most successful border relationship in the history of the world. And we work every day to ensure that Canadians will continue to enjoy the benefits of that enormous relationship, where they will be respected and treated in the manner in which any Canadian citizen has a right to expect.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood-Transcona.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Recently, 19 individuals crossed the border in Manitoba during a blizzard, including a pregnant woman and toddler. The Liberal government continues to claim that the current situation is somehow the status quo, but I can tell you, people running across farmers' fields across the border in a blizzard is not the status quo. And to make matters worse, the Prime Minister hasn't even answered the Premier of Manitoba's letter asking for help. During the meeting today with President Trump's official, would the Liberals point out that the U.S. no longer fits Canada's own description of a safe country for refugees?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, with respect to the asylum system in our country and in the United States, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, which is the authority in the world on this topic, has said that the safe third country arrangement is fully valid and without reason to change. In terms of dealing with the border crossings that are happening irregularly at places like Emerson and Lacole, both the CBSA and the RCMP have made the appropriate arrangements to ensure that they can protect the health and safety of Canadians and the asylum seekers.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Speaker. Liberal minister is getting up and saying it's status quo, every one of them except for the finance minister, who's hinting that Trump's presidency and saying his presidency is changing everything, including the budget. So instead of flowing the funds for their promises on mental health and home care, the Liberals have cynically been using that money to force provinces onto the Harper Plan. As Liberal promises collapse left and right, Canadians are wondering if they'll ever get the things they really need, like a national pharmacare plan. Is the Liberal government going to take responsibility for backtracking on their promises, or are they just going to blame Donald Trump?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, how wonderful to have an opportunity to announce today in this House that we have in fact come to a new agreement with 3 additional provinces, Alberta, Ontario, et la province de Quebec.
I am very pleased. This is very good news for those 3 provinces, and we're going to improve health care. We will support the provinces in order to make sure that all Canadians have the health care that they need. The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we could do more if we really wanted to work hard against tax evasion. This week, the government made a commitment by voting for the NDP motion to end tax loopholes that benefit the privileged. This includes the tax loopholes for stock option deductions that the Liberals had promised they would abolish during their election campaign. Will this government commit to ending tax loopholes in the very next budget?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, CRA continues to take important steps in ensuring that we make progress in cracking down on tax cheats and ensuring tax system that is more responsive and fair for all Canadians. Supported by the investment made in Budget 2016, we made a significant investment of $444 million. Now because of the investment we made, we now have more people, more technology, and more resources at our disposal. And because of these resources, the agency audit activities have put in place to raise assessments of over $13 billion this fiscal year alone. This is what Canadians expect us to do, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Swedish authorities have just arrested a Bombardier employee who's been accused of aggravated bribery. And before handing over taxpayer dollars to Bombardier, I hope that the Liberal government did its homework and checked out all of Bombardier's operations. $375 million is a lot of money, Mr. Speaker, and this money doesn't belong to the Liberals. It belongs to Canadians. So my question is simple. Did the Canadian government have any knowledge of this Swedish investigation when they were giving Bombardier the money?
Good question.
Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows, this investment that we made was for the aerospace sector, a critical sector in the Canadian economy that contributes over $28 billion to our overall growth, that contributes 211,000 jobs to our economy. And this investment was so critical, and that's why when we made this investment, we did do our due diligence in advance of entering into agreement with Bombardier. I'm aware of the situation regarding Bombardier, Mr. Speaker, in Sweden. Any questions relating to specific activities of the company should be directed to the company, but we did do our due diligence, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Haldimand Norfolk.
I'll take that as a yes, Mr. Speaker. Now, the Liberals claim that they'd spend $8 billion on infrastructure. But yesterday, the Parliamentary Budget Officer said that they're short a whopping $2.5 billion in that promised spending. Now, given that the Minister of Finance enjoys increasing taxes and spending Canadians' hard-earned money, I asked the Finance Minister, what taxes will he be raising or introducing to vacuum even more money from Canadians to pay for this shortfall?
The Honourable Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have elected a government that is committed to grow the economy in order to grow the middle class. We are delighted to hear today that 220,000 new jobs have been created in the last 6 months, most of them full-time. This is the best record in over a decade, Mr. Speaker. We're very proud of that. We look forward to continuing our agenda to grow the economy and the middle class in the next budget.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, this government made many promises it hasn't kept. They repeat that they supposedly helped 9 families out of 10 and talk about 300,000 children. In a population of 36 million Canadians, that's not a great outcome. Experts are unanimous. The vast majority of Canadians have less money in their pockets. The Liberals have no vision, and they are trying to dazzle us with the flash of Mr. Selfie. Spending blindly without getting results is irresponsible. When will this government finally be responsible and table a real budget to protect the future of our children and our grandchildren? The Honourable Minister for Families and Children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased to be able to answer this question, Mr. Speaker, because not only does the Canada Child Benefit get 300,000 children throughout the entire country out of poverty, but in the riding of my colleague who just spoke, there are 22,000 children who are now receiving a benefit of $200 more per month, which is tax-free, which is compared to the previous system.
Mr. Speaker, the budget won't be balanced for 38 years. How is that helping our kids? Exactly. Mr. Speaker, the economic situation in Alberta continues to be critical. Unemployment numbers have been climbing, businesses are crippled by new taxes, and families are struggling. What Albertans need now are good jobs. But instead, the investing of local infrastructure projects by Alberta Municipalities Association says the Alberta NDP is using $300 million of the Federal Building Canada Fund to pay down their skyrocketing debt. Can the minister guarantee that not $1 of the Canada Building Fund has gone to anything but infrastructure projects?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question, and I'm proud to rise as part of a Liberal government that believes in Alberta and believes in Albertan. We understand the challenges facing Alberta families and will continue to deliver on our commitments to invest in infrastructure and to support economic growth and improve our communities. Working with our provincial and municipal partners, we have 127 projects of project costs of $4.2 billion, Mr. Speaker, invested in Alberta. And I'll go into detail. That includes the Yellowhead Highway extension at $230 million. That includes the Southwest Calgary Ring Road, $500 million in federal contribution. I can go on for several pages, Mr. Speaker, but I only have about 30 seconds. That includes $30 million federal contribution for the Calgary Green Line and Edmonton's LRT plans, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, in their 2016 deficit budget, the Liberals promised to transfer uncommitted infrastructure funds from the government, Conservatives, previously to municipalities through the gas tax transfer fund. When they took office in November of 2015, there were $837 million left to distribute to municipalities across the country. On budget day, just 4 months later, there were just $31 million left in the pot. One problem, no municipality has a record of the money coming to their municipality. So if no one has a record of the money, where did the money go?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Thank the honourable member for her question. Part of the reason we're delivering for Canadians and their families is the fact that we want to get $180 billion of infrastructure into the economy and to stimulate the economy, Mr. Speaker. As regards the gas tax fund, I think there's a little bit of confusion. Surely the member opposite isn't suggesting that we take money and reallocate it for projects that we've already promised to deliver. Unlike the other government, we do our diligence and we announce projects when they're approved at our level. The gas tax fund does get reallocated, but not in the sums that the honourable member is suggesting, and we have fulfilled on that promise to transfer over the gas tax funds the appropriate amounts allocated, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of volunteer firefighters across Canada
individually give hundreds of hours each year, risking their lives in contribution to community safety. Roughly 80% of Alberta's firefighters are volunteers, and a full 97% of the fire departments are volunteer operated. That's over 450 in our province alone. That's why the Conservative government instituted a volunteer firefighter tax credit. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Finance Minister or Parliamentary Secretary, will the Finance Minister guarantee that this tax credit will not be cancelled in the upcoming budget?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. Mr. Speaker, our government has made a commitment to middle-class Canadians and those working hard to join it. The first item that we did, Mr. Speaker, when we formed government, we lowered taxes for middle-class Canadians. We put in place a very generous Canada Child Benefit program for middle-class families. And also, Mr. Speaker, we continue to go forward in helping families and children because we want all Canadians to prosper, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Hear, hear. I'll have Deputy to Sherbrooke.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, the tax evasion scandal and the cronyism scandal continue to seriously undermine the credibility of an important institution of our country. Public servants are leaving the Revenue Agency to go and work for firms that don't even bother to hide the immorality of their actions, like KPMG. The KPMG developed a tax scheme for the Isle of Man, and they set it up to help their clients avoid paying taxes in Canada, and that's unacceptable. A simple question: will the minister commit to tightening up the rules for post-employment for employees of the Revenue Agency to avoid situations that undermine the confidence of the public? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Revenue.
For the CRA's current post-employment policy instrument is among the most stringent in Canada. Any specific disclosure of taxpayer information by either an employee or former employee is prohibited by law. Let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker, this prohibition has no time limit. An employee or former employee of CRA who violates these provisions could face sanctions, including fines or imprisonment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Desnathy, Miss Nippy Churchill River.
The upcoming budget must address the tragic shortfalls in funding for mental health services. The Sask Party wants to believe everything is fine, but people in my riding face great challenges when it comes to accessing appropriate mental health services. And the federal government cannot continue to ignore this shortfall in our northern communities. People in my riding cannot afford to wait. When will the Liberals commit to a comprehensive long-term strategy that provides adequate mental health care to Northerners?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for her question and her continued advocacy on behalf of her constituents and indeed all people in her province as it relates to the very real needs for mental health. She knows that we have invested in the area of mental wellness for First Nations and Inuit across the country in the order of an additional $70 million that was announced earlier this year. In addition, we reached a deal with Saskatchewan, one of now 9 provinces and 3 territories for whom we've reached an agreement on mental health funding. In Saskatchewan's case, it was $150 million that will go to support expanding access to very real mental health needs in that province.
Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, no government in recent history has taken so long to fill watchdog vacancies as these Liberals. This shouldn't come as a surprise, as the Prime Minister is under investigation for multiple ethical transgressions. Between countless judicial vacancies, unfilled watchdog positions, the Liberals are once again proving to Canadians that they're only willing to greenlight Liberal insiders and former chiefs of staff. Just yesterday, they appointed a Liberal donor to the Superior Court of PEI. The Liberals have proven once again the only families they're interested in looking after are their own. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Appreciate the opportunity to stand in this House and to remind Canadians, to remind members that it's this government that introduced a new merit-based process that is open and transparent. Every position is available online. I encourage Canadians to apply. We have taken diversity, bilingualism, gender parity, all into consideration when making these important decisions. We will continue to deliver for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, what did these Liberals do when a Chinese insurance company with a secret ownership structure dominated by the who's who of Chinese Communist Party applies to buy essential seniors care facilities in Canada? They turn over the keys to one of the largest healthcare providers in the province of British Columbia. Nobody will do business with Ombong Insurance because of their questionable ownership, not even Wall Street firms. How can we trust them to look after our seniors in their most vulnerable times of their lives? When will the Liberals finally act in the interest of Canadian seniors? Put the sale on hold.
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister of Innovation and Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, our number one priority is the economy, and we realize we need to be open to trade, we need to be open to people, and we need to be open to investment. That is why we looked at this transaction and said, is it in our overall net economic benefit? And yes, it is. We did our due diligence. We made sure that the employment levels will remain high. We will make sure that Retirement Concepts has the additional resources it needs to expand. We did our job, Mr. Speaker. It's good for British Columbia, it's good for the economy, and it's good for seniors.
Well, member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that the Minister of Transport himself thinks that selling off our airports is good for travellers. If he has listened to any of the advice he's been receiving over the past year, he will have heard this is a bad idea. But as he has stated, the Finance Minister will make that decision. And we now know he needs the billions of dollars that the sale of these airports to international investors will provide to hide the failure of Liberal budgeting. Just how desperate is the Minister to hide his mess?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, our government recognizes that a strong, integrated and modern transportation system is fundamental to Canada's continuing economic performance and competitiveness. We will also support greater choice, better service, lower costs, and new rights for middle-class Canadian travellers. We're working hard to improve the transportation system to better serve Canadians. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the answer had absolutely nothing to do with the question, and Canadians are worried. The government has not a penny left, and the Minister of Transportation refuses to answer yes or no if the government is going to sell airports to pay interest on the Minister of Finance's credit card. Will the Minister finally give us a real answer? Will the government, yes or no, sell airports in Quebec, Montreal, and Vancouver? And, above all, who will be the buyers, Mr. Speaker? Canadians have the right to know. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transportation.
Mr. Speaker, any decision about Canada's transportation system will be in the best interest of the Canadian travellers and Canadian gateways. We will make strategic investments in trade and transportation projects that build stronger, more efficient transportation corridors to international markets and help Canadian businesses to compete, grow and create more jobs for the middle class. That's the program we're on, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Well, Mr. Speaker, for 10 long years, Stephen Harper received dozens of fossil awards. To be clear, they were ironic. Now, this Prime Minister is taking it to another level. Yesterday, a crowd of global oil and gas executives in Houston awarded this Prime Minister a true fossil award, an award for the approval of pipelines without the social license that he said would be needed during the last election. That's right. You'd be right to be confused. Is this seriously the real change Canadians were promised?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada has no stronger friend, partner and ally than the United States. We share common values. We're pro-jobs, pro-business and pro-North America. That's why the Minister and Prime Minister are in Houston building relationships with our North American partners. We will continue to work with our continental partners to build on our energy partnership, creating good-paying middle-class jobs and opportunities for years to come. We've taken a smart, balanced approach to developing our energy resources by pricing carbon pollution and creating an ocean protections plan, all the while getting our resources to market, creating more than 25,000 jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is all over the map when it comes to climate change, cozying up to the Texas oil patch and accepting fossil awards from them. It's hard to see how this government proposes to meet its agreements under the Paris Agreement. The Environment Minister is clearly forced to keep her mouth shut, but what's the government waiting for? Why are they taking so long to join other G8 countries in developing an electric vehicle strategy? 4 charging stations are hardly going to allow us to meet our climate change objectives. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Environment Minister.
Knows that growing the economy and protecting the environment go together in the modern world. I would say that we are incredibly proud of the work that this government has done on the climate change and environmental file since we took office. We've accomplished more in the past year than the previous government accomplished in a decade. Our government has put in place pricing on carbon pollution. We've accelerated the phase-out of coal-fired power. We're developing a clean fuel standards to cut emissions associated with oil and gas use. We're investing in public transit and electric vehicle infrastructure. We've taken action on short-lived climate pollutants. And we've done a number of other things to ensure that we are protecting the economy while we are growing good middle-class jobs for the clean growth economy of the future.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are proud of our publicly funded healthcare system. It ensures that no Canadian has to make a choice between economic well-being and their health. The Minister of Health has been meeting with her provincial and territorial counterparts, reaching agreements with many with them on new investments on mental health and home care. As she has just announced, new deals have been reached with Quebec, Ontario and Alberta. Could the Minister elaborate on how this great news will benefit Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Kings Vaughan for her question. As she said, we've been working for months with the provinces and territories discussing ways to improve the healthcare system for Canadians, especially with investments in mental health and home care.
Very happy today that we have reached agreements with 3 additional provinces, Alberta, Ontario and Quebec, for making new investments. In addition to increasing the Canada Health Transfer every single year, we will add additional resources in these very important shared priorities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, a Hells Angel leader from Quebec, a Toronto man charged with possessing child pornography, an Ottawa father charged with breaking both of his newborn baby's ankles, and multiple people charged for murder. Mr. Speaker, there are still over 60 vacancies on the Superior Court. How many more suspects will be set free on our streets before this government will take their jobs seriously and appoint the required judges to keep our streets safe?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member knows, and I think every member of this House will join me in saying that murder, sexual assault crimes are wrong. This government is taking concrete steps to appoint judges in a very efficient manner. The honourable member will also know that this is the product of a judicial appointments process which has been renewed by this government. We will continue to take recommendations from the judicial advisory committees which have been struck across this country, and this will ensure that we have a criminal justice system that protects Canadians, that ensures that victims get the justice they deserve. Thank you.
The honourable member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here's what Dr. Chris Rumble had to say during the consultations on legalizing marijuana. The Prime Minister's plan should pay heed to the sad experiences of the U.S. In Washington State, the number of highway fatalities due to stoned drivers has doubled. In Colorado, it has tripled. Mr. Speaker, I'm concerned, the police are concerned, and Canadians are concerned too. Can the Minister of Public Safety assure us that the police will have a drug detection device before even contemplating making pot legal? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we've made that point very clear from the very beginning of our discussion with respect to marijuana. We're obviously going to legalize cannabis and apply a very strict regulatory regime around the use of the product. But with respect to drug-impaired driving, that is already a criminal offence in Canada, and we will make sure it remains so. We will also make sure the police have the technical tools to enforce the law effectively.
Honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the Liberals push to legalize marijuana, many Canadians are concerned about the consequences of people driving while high. We've seen these issues in Colorado, where marijuana-related traffic deaths have increased by 92% between 2010 and 2014. After meetings with drug recognition experts, it's clear there is no precise way to measure impairment while under the influence of marijuana. Will the Liberals stop their drive to legalize marijuana until authorities have the tools to assure the safety of Canadians on the road?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I share the honourable gentleman's concern and very keen interest in this dimension of the issue, and I can assure him that we are putting the steps in place to make sure that the public is properly protected, including over the last 3 or 4 months, testing scientifically a variety of different roadside testing devices in 7 different locations across the country to ensure that they function properly under Canadian conditions.
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, Mary Ng, the Liberal candidate in Markham Thornhill and former Director of Appointments to the Prime Minister, bragged she was responsible for the appointment of members of the Immigration and Refugee Board. The Prime Minister's hand-picked candidate is undermining the confidence in this board. Can the Prime Minister ensure that the integrity of the Immigration and Refugee Board has not been compromised as a result of Mary Ng's political ambitions?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the member will be proud to know that this government has introduced a new government-wide appointments process that is open, transparent, and merit-based. Our approach will actually result in the recommendation of highly qualified candidates who achieve gender parity and truly reflect Canada's diversity. All opportunities to apply are available online, and I encourage Canadians to apply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Salaberry-sur.
The honourable member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. In the spring, Formosa steel caused an environmental disaster in Vietnam, killing millions of fish, the staple food of many Vietnamese. A new wave of repression and harassment against human rights activists has followed. Over 110 people are still in jail. My latest letters to the Foreign Affairs Minister have not been answered. Is this government going to keep its word on human rights and push for the release of these activists? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. This is clearly one of the fundamental principles of our foreign policy, respect for human rights, and in all our international relations, Canada tries to ensure that our international partners put emphasis and give priority to human rights. That's an integral part of who we are as Canadians. Thank you.
International shipping interests are pushing for 5 huge commercial anchorages off the shores of Gabriola Island. This is causing great concern in the riding. This project has no local benefit. It threatens the community and the sensitive ecology of our coastline. The Liberal government should not use Harper's environmental rules to assess this project. Will the Transport Minister reject the request for Gabriola bulk anchorages? It's bad for our local economy, bad for climate change, and there's no upside for Canada.
Bravo. The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Be like that. Go ahead. All right. We are committed to delivering on a mandate, and we are putting significant money, $1.5 billion, into an oceans protections plan. We need to manage our natural resources, all of our resources, and we need to spend taxpayers' money responsibly. In support of the Canadian transportation sector, it will be about building new markets, new gateways, providing better service to Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The situation in South Sudan is deteriorating rapidly. There's more than an estimated 100,000 people are facing starvation, with a further 1 million people are on the brink of famine. Over 250,000 children are already severely malnourished and at the risk of death. Three UN agencies have declared South Sudan a famine. So my question to the Minister is, what is this government prepared to do to help the people of South Sudan?
The Honourable Minister of International Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my colleagues' interest in the terrible situation that is raging in South Sudan currently. In 2016, we provided $45 million in international aid specifically for South Sudan. We're now considering the various calls for humanitarian aid, including the food crisis in Nigeria, Somalia, Yemen, and in the south. And we will contribute more in the weeks to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to come from a riding where we have many wineries that help contribute to our economy. I know that this place, that there's many people that take pride in the products that Canadian wine and vintners produce. Recently, a historic agreement was reached within the Canadian wine industry that will result in more transparent labeling for cellared in Canada, also known as blended in Canada wines. As this agreement requires the approval of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, can the Agricultural Minister assure this House that he will expedite all processes and approvals in order to allow our wine industry to grow and prosper and grow in prestige world-renowned?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for the question, and I have visited his lovely riding and enjoyed some of the fine wines from British Columbia and wines across the country. The matter is under consideration with the Minister, and we'll be happy to get back to you very soon. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, most Canadians would be shocked that we spend more on servicing our federal debt than we do on national defense, and that a Finance Department report projects that continued reckless spending by the Liberals means we won't see a balanced budget until 2050. The Liberals don't want Canadians to know how bad it all is. They have simply decided to shut down the Finance Committee rather than study their own government's report. Can the Vice Chair of the Finance Committee update Canadians on the priorities and planning of the Finance Committee for its upcoming meetings, Mr. Speaker?
Honourable Member for Calgary, Signal Hill.
Thank the member for his hard work on this file, Mr. Speaker. And the member is absolutely correct that the Finance Committee has no work to do. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have proposed no agenda, no bills, and the Conservatives put forward 2 motions to study jobs, to study the long-term financial impacts of this budget, and the Conservative members, or the Liberal members on the committee, voted those Conservative motions down. Mr. Speaker, Canadians sent Conservatives here to do work. Unfortunately, the Liberal members of that committee don't think that way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Glengarry, Prescott, Russell. Order.
Mr. Speaker, over 65% of people in Glengarry, Prescott, Russell have French as their mother tongue. Whether it's at work, in business, or just daily life, French is an integral part of our cultural heritage and our diversity. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Immigration Minister update the House on the ways our government is strengthening Francophone communities outside Quebec through immigration? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Immigration Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Glengarry, Prescott Russell, for his question on Francophone immigration. This government has restored the Francophone mobility program that was prematurely cut off by the previous government. This program supports Francophone minority communities outside Quebec, and our government will continue to support stakeholders, communities, and all members in order to meet and even exceed our targets for Francophone immigration all across the country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, every day the Defence Minister betrays his difficulty understanding simple issues. First of all, he made up a capability gap which the RCAF denies the existence of. And contrary to documents he himself signed, he falsely claimed that the Conservative government deployed our troops on Operation Impact without danger pay. And yesterday he claimed cadets didn't use firearms, but their website refers to shooting competitions. What's coming out of the minister's mouth, the truth or alternative facts?
Vance.
We are committed to supporting our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces. We don't send our troops into places like Kuwait without sending them tax-free. We were the ones our government was the ones that actually got the tax-free exemption. That was done in February 2016, which was signed off by the Finance Minister, Mr. Speaker. We are conducting a defense policy review, making sure that we're going to be looking after our troops and not just making hollow promises that the previous government had done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the coast of BC is home to 4 globally unique glass sponge reefs, the Hecate Strait and the Queen Charlotte glass sponge reefs. Once thought to be extinct worldwide, These 9,000-year-old glass sponges offer a vital water filtration service and are home to many aquatic species. Can the Parliamentary Secretary tell this House what the government is doing to protect this unique ocean feature?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by thanking the member and his constituents for their recent work on the Fisheries Act. A few weeks ago in BC, the Minister announced the Hecate Strait and Queen Charlotte Soundglass Sponge Reefs as a marine protected area. These reefs are important habitat for many aquatic species, and I thank the Indigenous, conservation, and industry partners involved in making this designation possible. Our government is further committed to increasing the proportion of marine and coastal areas that are protected to 5% this year and 10% by 2020. This is good news for Canada, Mr. Speaker, and this is great news for future generations.
The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
Last week, we found out that the Liberals were cutting 8 teacher positions in the English language training at Brandon's Assiniboine Community College. Without language training, many of our immigrants and refugees won't be able to go to school, get a job, or integrate into our community. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Liberal government reverse this disastrous decision and reinstate this much-needed funding?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, we are determined to respect our obligations under the Official Languages Act, and the assessment of language skills is used for people who apply for certain permanent residence programs under the economic stream. We've tried to find ways to reduce barriers, and the process is being streamlined. The department intends to cooperate with companies and various organizations that provide those tests in order to try to improve the situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, last night the Prime Minister won the top prize in Texas for his leadership in boosting dirty energy. When it's the big polluters, Enbridge, TransCanada, Exxon, to name a few, that are paying tribute to the Prime Minister for his policies, environmental advocates and sustainable development promoters have every reason to be concerned. Can the Prime Minister or the Environment Minister assure Quebecers that her government's not at the service of the oil patch, starting by putting an end to the Energy East project once and for all? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Natural Resources.
Rise in the House again and talk about Canada having no stronger friend, partner and ally than the United States. We share common values. We're pro-jobs, pro-business and pro-North America. And that's why the Prime Minister and the Minister are in Houston building those strong relationships with our North American partners. We've taken a balanced approach, Mr. Speaker, to developing our energy resources by pricing carbon pollution, creating an ocean protections plan, and all the while getting our resources to market and creating 25,000 good-paying middle-class jobs. Thank you.
The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, President Trump's looming cuts to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency threaten the water quality in the Great Lakes, which flow into the St. Lawrence. As long as Quebec isn't a country, we have to rely on the federal government to go to bat for us. Will they call on the Americans to protect Quebec's main source of drinking water? Or are they once again going to turn their backs on Quebecers and kowtow to the dirty oil industry and their pal Trump? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Has a very long history of working collaboratively with the United States on issues associated with clean water and the Great Lakes. We remain committed as a government to the implementation of the Canada-U.S. Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement and to the delivery on its Great Lakes commitments through our variety of national programs. We look forward to ongoing collaboration with the U.S. administration. We will work alongside our U.S. and domestic partners to continue to promote strong action on clean water on the Great Lakes.
The member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to say the Revenue Minister comes up with some doozies. She should try stand up. Yesterday, in answer to my question, she said CRA had very, very strict rules for ex-employees who switched to the private sector. But really, there's just a handful of ex-employees, 6, who registered after joining KPMG. Enough with the one-liners. Can we hear why there's no serious rule and no serious checking for tax experts who then switch over to the private sector and help people avoid tax?
As I said before, and as the Minister of National Revenue stated before, the CRA's current post-employment policy is among the most stringent in Canada. Any specific disclosure of tax-fair information by either an employee or former employee is prohibited by law. Let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker, this prohibition has no time limit. An employee or any former employee of the CRA who violates these provisions could face sanctions, including fines or imprisonment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs. When meeting with the Daughters of the Vote in the House here this Wednesday, the Prime Minister reiterated how past governments had failed Indigenous people. Mr. Speaker, now is the time to right these wrongs. The Government of Nunavut has submitted 2 investment requests to address Nunavut's immediate need for housing and energy generation infrastructure. Will the Minister commit to ensuring Nunavut receive this much-needed funding?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank you. I want to thank the honourable member from Nunavut for his question. And as he knows, our government is taking important steps to close the totally unacceptable housing gap in northern communities. Budget 2016 invested $76.7 million over 2 years in Nunavut for housing. We also committed $10.7 million over 2 years for renewable energy projects in off-grid and northern communities. We will continue to work with the member and the government of Nunavut to promote the well-being of the Nunavut youth.
This will conclude question period for today. I see the l'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier is rising on a point of order. Yes, point of order. Mr. Speaker, earlier during question period, my colleague from Quebec, who is Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, mentioned a number of people in my riding. We don't have the same numbers. I'd like to ask the member to table the source of his numbers to ensure me that what he said in the House is the truth, Mr. Speaker.
Well,
I think that is really a point of debate, but I see that the honourable minister is rising. If he wishes to respond, does the honourable minister wish to respond? The honourable minister. It would be a great pleasure, Mr. Speaker, for me to discuss this with my colleague and discuss the great impact that the Canada Child Benefit is having, not only across Canada, but in his riding.
Well, it kind of works both ways. Dépôt de documents.
Tabling of documents.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 36(8), I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's responses to 4 petitions.